Good evening, America. This is Jeff Desk. Tonight we are not here to shout. We are here to expose something far more dangerous than noise. The quiet, calculated moment when a president who has spent a lifetime telling you he is the smartest man alive proves once again that the only opinion he has ever trusted is his own. And when that opinion collides with reality, someone always pays the price. Tonight, that someone is Ed Martin, the only Trump nominee ever rejected by a Republican Senate, the January 6th insurrectionist Donald Trump personally installed inside the Justice Department anyway, and the man who just got publicly humiliated and escorted out the door after failing at the one job Trump created specifically for revenge. Buckle in, because what happened to Ed Martin is not an accident. It is the blueprint. Trump repeatedly claims unmatched intelligence and only picks the best people. Ed Martin is the only Trump nominee Republicans in Senate actually rejected. For as long as Donald Trump has been in public life, one of the central pillars of his personal brand has been the unshakable belief that he is, in his own words, like a very smart person. He does not merely claim above-average intelligence, he positions himself as operating on an entirely different plane from the rest of humanity. He has told audiences that his understanding of policy, trade, taxes, military strategy, science, and virtually every other subject is better than almost anybody. He once informed a crowd that he has the best words and a very good brain. During the 2016 campaign, he boasted that his IQ was one of the highest, and he has repeatedly challenged reporters and critics to IQ tests, certain he would crush them. He has described himself as a stable genius who went to Wharton and therefore knows more about everything from ISIS to infrastructure than the generals and experts who have spent their lives on those subjects. This self-image is not presented as modesty or even confidence. It is delivered as settled fact, the way one might state that the sky is blue. Trump does not say he is smart. He says he is the smartest or very close to it, and that this superior intellect is the reason voters should trust him completely. It is the foundation upon which he justifies every decision, every hire, every firing, every reversal. If something works, it happened because of his unparalleled brain. If something fails, someone else was too stupid to execute the flawless plan that came from that same brain. And because the brain is flawless, it follows that the people he chooses must also be flawless. This is where the second half of the mantra comes in. I only hire the best people. He has said it thousands of times. We're going to have the best people. I surround myself with the finest people. I pick the greatest people you've ever seen. It is not just a campaign slogan. It is a governing philosophy. The moment he announces a new appointment, the praise is immediate and absolute. The person is tremendous, world-class, a superstar, one of the most respected, brilliant, loyal, tough, a killer. There is never nuance, never a hint that the person might be merely competent or experienced. They are always the single greatest example of their profession in the history of the country, possibly the world. This pattern has repeated itself for decades. Omarosa Manigault Newman was terrific and highly respected until she wasn't. Reince Priebus was a superstar until he became weak. Steve Bannon was a great guy and very smart until he was sloppy Steve with no influence. Anthony Scaramucci was highly successful and talented for 11 days before he was fired and declared mentally unstable. Rex Tillerson was a world-class player until he became dumb as a rock. John Kelly was the toughest and one of the best until he was way overrated and not that tough. The list is endless. The praise is always total, the fall is always total, and the speed of the reversal is always breathtaking. But the Ed Martin case stands alone in one crucial respect. Even when the praise was at its peak, even when Trump was calling him unbelievable, a great warrior, terrific, the finest, and insisting that failing to elevate him would doom the country for generations, the Republican-controlled Senate looked at Ed Martin and said, in effect, no, not this one. They confirmed Matt Gaetz, they confirmed Linda McMahon, they confirmed Pete Hegseth, they confirmed Kash Patel, they confirmed Tulsi Gabbard. They confirmed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They confirmed every single loyalist Trump sent up the hill, no matter how extreme, no matter how unqualified, no matter how obviously unfit for the role. They waved through people who had openly called for dismantling entire federal agencies, people who had spread conspiracy theories on national television, people who had never held a serious government job in their lives. They confirmed them all, often on party-line votes, often in the dead of night, often with zero Democratic support. Yet when Ed Martin's name came before them, something extraordinary happened. The same Republican senators who had spent years rubber stamping every Trump pick suddenly found a spine they did not know they had. They looked at Ed Martin's record, his statements, his actions on January 6th, his open calls for prosecuting Trump's political enemies, his complete lack of prosecutorial experience, his history of inflammatory rhetoric, and they decided this was the one bridge too far. They rejected him. Publicly, on the record, in a Republican Senate. That had never happened before, and it has not happened since. Ed Martin is the only Trump nominee out of dozens and dozens sent up during this term who was actually blocked by his own party. Think about what that means. Every other loyalist, no matter how extreme, was deemed acceptable. But Ed Martin was so radioactive, so obviously unfit, so openly partisan and dangerous that even the most servile Republican senators could not bring themselves to vote yes. They knew that putting him in a position of real power inside the Justice Department would cross a line even they were not willing to cross. That is how far outside the mainstream Ed Martin was. That is how toxic his reputation had become, even among people whose entire political identity at that point was blind loyalty to Donald Trump. And yet, even after that humiliating rejection, Trump did not drop him. He did not distance himself. He did not say, well, the Senate has spoken. Instead, he doubled down. He praised Martin more loudly than ever. He called him one of the toughest fighters he had ever met. He handpicked him anyway and installed him inside Main Justice to run the very unit designed to go after Trump's enemies. He gave him power without confirmation, without oversight, without accountability. He did it quietly behind the scenes because he could, because no one was going to stop him. That is the real story here. The man who claims to have the greatest judgment in history, the man who only picks the best people, took someone his own party had publicly declared unacceptable, someone so extreme that even MAGA senators recoiled and said, actually, this is exactly who I want running a secret prosecution unit inside the Department of Justice. The same man who insists he is smarter than almost anyone alive looked at Ed Martin and decided he was not just good enough, but perfect for the job of weaponizing federal law enforcement against political opponents. That is not just hypocrisy. That is not just another example of Trump's ever-shifting praise and blame. That is a flashing red warning about how Donald Trump actually makes decisions when no one is able or willing to stop him. The Senate rejection of Ed Martin was supposed to be the guardrail. It was supposed to be the moment the system worked. Instead, it became the moment the system was ignored, because the man who believes he is the smartest person alive decided that the only opinion that matters is his own. Trump handpicked Martin to lead DOJ weaponization of government unit anyway. Martin is a January 6th insurrectionist and extreme partisan hack. Even after the Republican Senate rejected Ed Martin, the only nominee they ever blocked, Donald Trump personally installed him inside Main Justice to direct the secret weaponization of government task force. No confirmation, no hearings, no oversight. Trump simply bypassed the constitutional process and gave a failed, unconfirmable, loyalist, unchecked power to hunt his enemies with federal prosecutors. Martin, a man who marched to the Capitol on January 6th, who has spent years spreading election lies, who openly brags about being a soldier in Trump's war on institutions, was deemed the perfect choice to turn the Department of Justice into a retribution machine. This is not a fringe operative who slipped through. This is the president deliberately elevating a twice-rejected insurrectionist to the most dangerous political weapon inside the government, proving that Senate rejection means nothing when Trump wants a partisan attack dog in place. Martin's entire career since 2020 has been one long act of vengeance cosplay, and Trump rewarded that blind rage with real authority over indictments and investigations. Every prosecution Martin led against Trump's enemies completely failed. Martin just got demoted to pardon attorney and is leaving DOJ soon. Under Ed Martin's command, the weaponization unit burned through millions in taxpayer money and produced exactly 0 convictions, 0 plea deals, 0 scalps. The cases against Letitia James collapsed 3 separate times, dismissed, laughed out of court, dead on arrival. The attempted firing of Fed Governor Lisa Cook is limping toward a Supreme Court burial. Every indictment they drafted was so sloppy, so legally embarrassing, that even Trump-friendly judges threw them out. Martin did not just lose, he lost spectacularly, repeatedly, and publicly, turning Trump's promised retribution tour into the most expensive, most visible failure inside the entire Justice Department. On Monday, the axe finally fell. Martin was stripped of all authority, kicked downstairs to the bureaucratic graveyard of pardon attorney, a job usually given to quiet career lawyers who push paper in silence, and multiple sources confirm he is being escorted out of Main Justice entirely within weeks. The insurrectionist, who was too extreme for a MAGA Senate and too incompetent for Trump's revenge squad, has been officially reduced to a national punchline and a soon-to-be ex-employee. Internet exploded with mockery the moment news broke. Trump elevates doomed loyalists on purpose so he can blame them when they fail. The second the demotion hit the wires, the entire internet lit up with savage, gleeful contempt. Keith Olbermann posted thoughts and prayers with a straight face. Paul Hanley screamed in all caps that the January 6th cheerleader just got fired because he lost every single case. Grant Stern laughed that Trump finally noticed his guy couldn't lock up even one person to justify the retribution fetish. Veterans, journalists, blue check nobody accounts. Everyone piled on at once, turning Ed Martin into the day's main character and the laughingstock of political Twitter. And that reaction was instant because everyone now recognizes the playbook. Trump deliberately promotes manifestly doomed loyalists to impossible missions exactly so they will fail. He hands them comically overmatched tasks: indict Letitia James, fire Lisa Cook, prosecute James Comey, whatever, and when the cases implode, as they always do because they're legally laughable, Trump gets to shrug, blame the incompetent underling he personally chose, and pretend his own hands are clean. It's the perfect coward's trick. Elevate a designated fall guy, watch him faceplant, then denounce him as low energy, not tough, a disaster, while the cult nods along and the cycle repeats. Martin was simply the latest sacrificial pawn in a game Trump has played since 2016, and the internet celebrated his public execution because we all saw the script coming years ago. This is the oldest Trump routine in the book, and it never changes. The moment a loyalist fails to deliver the impossible, the praise flips overnight into contempt so vicious it feels personal. Yesterday's great warrior, unbelievable, the finest, one of the toughest hombres I've ever met, becomes tomorrow's weak, pathetic, low IQ, a total disaster, somebody that nobody ever heard of. The switch is instantaneous, merciless, and always delivered with that same sneering tone he used on Low Energy Jeb, Lion Ted, Little Marco, Crooked Hillary, and every single person who ever let him down. Ed Martin just lived the full arc in real time. Senate rejected nobody, handpicked retribution czar, best ever, total failure, demoted, humiliated, and escorted out the door while the internet laughs and Trump pretends he barely knew the guy. It's the same script he ran on Cohen, Bolton, Kelly, Tillerson, Sessions, Pence, and dozens more. The second they can't bend reality to his delusions, they're dead to him, and he buries them with insults he practiced in the mirror. And now one genuinely dangerous January 6th insurrectionist, a man who marched on the Capitol, who spent years radicalizing people online, who was literally too extreme for a Republican Senate, is finally gone from the Justice Department. The fact that he was ever in the building at all should have kept every American up at night. His removal is not a footnote. It is a quiet victory for the rule of law. A rare moment when incompetence and public ridicule combine to force a course correction inside an administration that almost never self-corrects. Ed Martin is out, his unit is disgraced, his cases are dead, and his legacy is that even Trump's own people couldn't stomach keeping him in power anymore. Enjoy the brief celebration while it lasts, because the next name on the retribution depth chart is already warming up in the on-deck circle. Pam Bondi. Same profile, same blind loyalty, same January 6th revisionism tour, same promises to lock them up. She's next in line for the same promotion, the same impossible assignments, the same inevitable collapse, and the same future public execution when she can't deliver Trump's fantasy indictments either. The carousel never stops turning. And there it is. From unbelievable warrior and the finest to demoted, defeated, and disappeared in a single news cycle. Ed Martin is gone. One dangerous insurrectionist is finally out of the Department of Justice. But make no mistake, Pam Bondi is already lacing up her shoes. The carousel never stops, the pattern never breaks, and the country keeps paying the price for one man's unbreakable delusion. This is Jeff Desk. If you refuse to look away from what is actually happening, hit subscribe right now. Drop one word in the comments, carousel. Let's show them exactly how many of us see the game. Stay sharp, America. We'll see you tomorrow night.